Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, October 15th. Daisy has the, can you confirm that the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided?
Yes, I can confirm that the packet was posted and the required notice was provided.
Okay, thank you, Daisy. Could we get a roll call, please?
Before we do roll call, I wanted to have an opportunity to introduce Austin Hanson, who was appointed by the City Commission to be a student member on the Planning Commission, and he is joining us via Zoom. And before we call roll, we'd like Austin just to introduce himself and talk about where he is in his studies.
Hello, everyone. First off, I just want to apologize for my absence in past meetings. I only recently learned of my involvement in the commission because the email that I was using through that was lost, and so I wasn't notified. I am a first year in regional community planning at Kansas State University. I'm a part of the Student Planning Association, and we've been involved with some activities there so far. I've lived in Salina my entire life, so I have some history with the city at least, and I'm excited to be here.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Austin.
So
I'm glad you're with us.
We'll start roll by seeing if student member Hanson is here.
Hey, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Chair, could you confirm your mic is on?
Me?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Sydow?
Here.
Commissioner Von Covern?
Here.
Commissioner Alt?
Here.
Commissioner Mike Sell?
Here.
Commissioner Rogers?
Here.
Commissioner Paget?
Here.
Commissioner Farber?
Here.
Chair Waters.
Here.
So we have our full contingent of 8 commissioners present. That constitutes a quorum. We also have our student members, so we can proceed with today's meeting agenda.
Okay, thank you. Are there any corrections? If not, for the minutes of the September 17th regular meeting, please state those now. If there's no corrections, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So move. Second.
Second. There's been a motion to approve the minutes and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
carries. All right, moving into new business, quasi judicial matters, number 3.1.
We have 3 public hearing items for you this afternoon, or 2 public hearing items and 1 administrative item. The first item is an application that's been filed by Stutzman's Greenhouse requesting a special use permit to allow a seasonal open-air market and outdoor garden center to locate and operate in a planned development district C3 area, which is the Central Mall, and the proposed location is the west of the south end of the main mall building. And Mr. Hers is going to give you an overview of their application.
We're going to try something a little bit different with this presentation, where we actually have a linear PowerPoint that we're doing to kind of summarize the application. And so what this is this is a special use permit for Stutzman's Greenhouse. They have been located at the corner of Cloud and 9th Street since 2007, and they're proposing to relocate to the west side of Central Mall, which anytime you have here's the location on the map. So you can see that here's 9th Street, here's Magnolia down here, the south entrance that comes into the main Central Mall property. There's a landscaping island, and they're going to be located directly east of that landscaping island. So the role here is to review the proposed special use permit and to hold a public hearing and confirm that the proposed special use won't have any negative impacts on the surrounding area, and to impose any conditions that are necessary in order to mitigate any negative effects that you would have on the surrounding properties. So in this case, we have Stutzman's Greenhouse, which is Ben Miller here, who is one of the representatives. Their hours of operation are going to be on Mondays through Saturdays, 8 a.m. through 7 p.m., and then on Sunday, 8 a.m. through 6 p.m. from the months of April through October. And the structures that will be part of this application is a 60 by 120 shade structure, and that shade structure is a metal skeleton structure or superstructure that then has a fabric that is draped over it to create shade. There's also a temporary 30 by 50 tent that gets erected and then taken down every year, and there will be two 10 by 12 storage buildings on the site that will remain there throughout the seasonal operations. Here are some photographs of their existing site and what is being proposed at the new location. So here you can see the tent, which is the red and white structure. In the background, you have the superstructure with the green fabric, the shade structure there. Here's another view of the shade structure, and again, the metal superstructure would be erected and be up year-round, while the fabric on the superstructure would be seasonal and be taken down at the end of each season. Here's another view of the proposed tent, as well as a view of one of the accessory structures, the storage buildings, one of the 10 by 12 storage buildings. For sanitary and utilities, the Stutzman's Greenhouse has an agreement with Central Mall to use their restrooms. There's also water and Evergy electrical services that will be hooked up to. For security, Stutzman will have employees on site during their operations, as well as security cameras, and if necessary, will use police. So here is an aerial photo that shows an existing 12-inch water line that loops around the Central Mall property. This is where Stutzman's will tap into for water service. And so the site plan shows a water faucet being located in the landscaping island that's located on the west side of the special use area, as well as an electrical hookup that will then hook into the existing transformers that serve the outlots on the east side of 9th Street. For new noise control, the special use permit for this use would be hooked up to an electric service through Evergy, so no electrical generators will be there to generate sound. There's no proposed amplified sound or live music, and Stutzman's managers will be responsible for managing any noise levels that would exceed the normal expectations that you would have for an outdoor garden center. Traffic and parking, the site has a landscape island directly west. So as you come in off of 9th Street into the entrance, there's a landscaping island that creates a buffer. So that buffer will remain. There are curbs that surround that landscape island, and there's 4 trees within the landscape island. Stutzman's is also proposing a boundary that would go around the outside edges of the outdoor garden center. And for parking, the Central Mall does have quite a bit of surplus parking that they have an agreement with Central Mall to allow them to use. So there'll be a buffer boundary that surrounds the use, and then the parking outside of that boundary would then be available for customers and employees. Fire and emergency medical, Stutzman's is going to have fire extinguishers on hand, as well as first aid kits. Urgent care clinic is in walking distance to the northwest, not far, and then they'll have 911 for major emergency situations. They will have an on-site dumpster, and employees will be instructed to clean up any refuse or debris that is left by customers. And at the end of each operation season, only the metal structure and the 2 storage buildings will be left. Everything else will be removed from the site until the next season. So the Planning Commission has the following alternatives. They could approve the proposed special use permit subject to any special conditions that you feel are necessary. You could postpone action if additional information is needed. You could deny the application if you don't feel that the required findings can be made and that the proposed location is incompatible with the neighboring properties. Staff does have a few recommendations, recommended conditions if the Planning Commission wishes to approve the special use permit. One is that the open air market outdoor garden center, we limit to a single vendor or operator, so that we wouldn't have multiple vendors like we would with some of our other outdoor markets. It would just be the single operator of Stutzman's. The second would be that the open air market outdoor garden center be limited in the area shown on the plan, and that no activities will be spill out beyond the boundaries that are shown on the plan or into the adjacent driving aisles or parking stalls. Number 3 is that the site be cleaned up completely at the end of each season, with the exception of the 60 by 120 superstructure. The shade fabric would be removed, but the superstructure would remain, as well as the 220 square foot storage buildings. And that, number 4, that the special use permit may be revoked if the applicant is ever found to be in violation of city codes or the conditions of the special use permit. And with that, we would take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Justin. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff?
Dustin, first of all, I want to say I like the PowerPoint model
Sure.
of presenting this. That seems really good. Now, on the boundary that was showing around the thing, and is that a fence? Is that what that's going to be?
The applicant is here to speak more on it, but I think it's going to be a combination of timbers and cinder blocks, as well as probably some plantings. That's historically what they do, but I'll let them speak to the specifics of the boundary.
So that would probably, in your understanding, is that would probably come down then at the...
That would be removed at the end of every season. So the only thing that would be left is the skeletal metal structure, the superstructure, and the 2 storage buildings.
Great, thanks.
Dustin, I had a question as well. It says in here that this is for the 2024 calendar year through October. Should that be for 25, or are we just?
Well, it would be for, yeah, it would be for 2025 is what they're looking at, because they're going to move to that. It was a 24 application, but it would be for the 25 season would be the first season.
That was my question, because it said
Yeah.
April through October, and we were
Yeah.
winding that down now.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
Are there any other questions of staff? If not, would the applicant like to come to the podium and speak?
Well, I would like to address a couple of things if I could, Dustin. One of the things is that we would intend to install a permanent fence around that.
Okay.
It would stay up year-round for security purposes. And one of the things we currently do at the location is vacate all the table, everything around them, but we kind of leave them there so we don't have to move them. It would be a lot like the skeletal structure. I don't know whether that would pose a
Randall,
problem.
could you introduce yourself?
Oh,
Give
I'm
your
sorry. I'm Randy
name and
Parks with
address.
Stutzman's Greenhouse. Ben Miller's here as well.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I should know better than that,
That's
but
okay.
to not introduce myself. But I heard you speak to removing everything except for that. The tent certainly would be packed up and come back to the facility where we store that. We could remove the tables, but currently we're location we're at 9th and Cloud. We take everything off of there and leave the tables under the structure, and then we've got some kind of a perimeter around most of our structures where we leave them permanently. We have one in Derby and one in Great Bend where we have a fence around that perimeter of it. So I don't know whether that would pose a problem for the city. It'd certainly be a more secure issue with our security cameras to have that around there, to not have people coming in there to mess with anything as
Right.
well. So
And what type of fence would it be?
an iron fence
Iron fence.
around that with multiple gates, double
Okay.
gates coming into it.
Okay.
So,
Would that be a 6 foot tall, like wrought iron type fence? Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
that's what we were looking at, so.
Okay.
I had a question.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead,
Carrie.
yes.
If it's me.
Okay, for the metal structure, how is that's going to remain through the off-season, from my understanding? And so how will it be secured down, and what type of winds will, because that last storm we had was pretty bad, and just
There-
curious how that is, mounted down or anchored down.
Yes, and currently it's mounted the same way that it'd go down. These are engineered structures that have the support cables to support the structure in high winds. We've had some in some pretty tremendous winds that have stood up. It'll go down on new concrete that we're going to put down. That'll be a 6-inch concrete at minimum. If you don't, you have to put columns in the ground to set these things on, but it'll be with anchor points, 4 anchors on each pole of a depth of about 5.5 inches, or 4.5 inches rather. that are rated, grade rated anchors that will hold this down. I've seen them encounter some pretty, like I said, pretty strong winds, tornadic type activity, and they don't even move, so.
Okay, and what about those, the storage structures?
They'll be secured down like a regular storage barn to that, cabled down and tied down so that they can't blow over or move. Which is what they normally do with those.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay, Pat?
Carrie, I had the same question when this came before the board to locate over by Kansas Wesleyan the first time about the wind, and all those questions were answered very good by Mr. Miller, and staff reviewed them, the wind loads and that type of thing, and I presume this is going to be a similar installation.
Exactly. Same thing we do at all our locations. In fact, I think, Dustin, I sent you engineering prints of that, specifications of how they're anchored, if I remember correctly. In that
Yeah, we
W
do
truss-
have that,
W truss structure.
but we also have something that might be even more contextual in that
Yeah.
it's been existing in this community for almost 20 years, and here's a photograph of how it's maintained without blowing over since that time.
Yep.
So one thing we can report anecdotally, because there was great care taken when the superstructure was put up to make sure it was not temporary and wasn't going to go anywhere. And so the footing design was designed by an engineer and reviewed by our building official. And one of the tests that passed was that there was a windstorm where the gasoline canopy at the quick shop there at 9th and Claflin blew off and ended up in the intersection on 9th Street, and this superstructure was not affected at all by that same windstorm. So
Trial by fire.
Okay,
So
thank you.
then the tables, how will those be secured somehow to the?
Yeah, we generally shrink those in and put them in there. If not, we put them on pallets and band them down.
Okay.
If we keep them on site, if you required them to be tore down. We can haul them back, because we do some temporary structures that we have in other cities where we bring those back, but this being a more permanent location, we would like to leave them on site if it's possible. It saves transportation.
I don't think any of us want to micromanage that, but, because obviously you have an investment there in the tables, and if they blow away, that's loss for you as well, so.
We generally group them up, and they don't move, so they're pretty heavy when they're banded down, so.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of the applicant? All right, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I have a staff question. So is
Okay.
this, we don't renew this annually, we don't have to review this annually, do we?
So if you were to approve this, because it's a special use permit, the applicants, Stutzman's, would be able to renew it annually through an administrative process with a temporary use permit. So typically what they do at their 9th and Cloud location currently is they have a packet that's identical to what they submitted originally to the Planning Commission in 2007. They resubmit that every year so that it's the same plan, and then we approve it with the same conditions that the Planning Commission originally had in 2007 every year.
Thank you.
yeah, it would only come back to you if they expanded or if they were going to add additional structures or something like that. But if it stays the same every year, then we just renew it annually through staff.
Thank you. All right, are there any other questions of staff or the applicant? And if none, I would entertain a motion.
I think them adding the permanent fence was the only concern that I had around there. I think that's a safety concern, especially for cars driving around in the parking lot and stuff too. So I'd make a motion to approve SUP 24-3 with the 4 staff conditions.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve and second this special use permit. All those in favor say aye.
Real quick, for clarification, since Stutzman's asked to have a fence that would remain year-round and their tables be folded up and stored underneath the superstructure, do we want to modify the condition that speaks to that, or do you want to go with what staff has in the report? Because our report says that only the superstructure and the 2 storage buildings would remain, but if we want to add the fence and the folded tables, we probably want to do that, modify that condition.
I think for my motion, I would want to add the fence and the tables.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
I'd second that.
okay. Thank you, Dustin. Yes. Okay, all of those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Yes, please state your name.
My name is Ben Miller.
Okay.
Owner Stutzman's. Can't believe, Dean, it's been going on 18 years. And I got to say, our appreciation for this community has never wavered. Thank you. You are our #1 store.
Oh, wow.
You are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to 3.2, Amended Application Z24-1.
This is a public hearing to be held on amended application Z24-1. It's been filed by Southlands Development LLC, and it's a two-part request requesting a change in zoning district classification from agricultural to PC7, Planned Highway Commercial, and it's also concurrent with that approval of a site development plan for a proposed Maverick convenience store on the lot that is requested to be rezoned. And so the location that we're at is at the northwest corner of the Waterwell Road and I-135 interchange. And for point of reference, it's directly north of the Yost Addition, which is on the south side of Waterwell Road. And so I believe, Dustin, we had a map that showed the area that has been annexed into the city.
Yeah, this is the map. This is the map, but it's not real clear because of where the lines are. Maybe this will make it a little easier to.
Okay. So this map is the total area that's owned by Southlands Development LLC, and that entire 90-plus acres has been annexed into the city. And then this map reflects the portion in the corner of the property that is being requested for rezoning at today's meeting and will be the discussion of our hearing. And then we've got, just for point of reference, the Planning Commission recommended and the City Commission approved a change to the future land use map for the city. This area was formerly shown as an employment area, and the Planning Commission viewed it as having higher commercial potential due to the proximity to the interchange. And this portion that's in red was amended to be shown as future commercial. So one thing I want to do before we go through our presentation is just to make clear that we've got some multiple parties involved and multiple engineers and engineering firms. So just for a point of reference, our property owner is Southlands Development LLC, and Jake Bradley is the member representing them. His representative helping him with the applications is Gary Hobby, and Southlands Development has hired Caw Valley Engineering to do engineering work on their behalf for infrastructure. Maverick Convenience Stores is the prospective purchaser of this property. They're represented by Josh Rabe, who's their real estate development manager, who is here. And then joining us via Zoom is their engineer, which is Kason Schwalm, who works for Olson Engineering. So we have Olson Engineering working for Maverick and Caw Valley working for the Southlands Development, the property owner. So we'll now proceed with our report. And just...
Excuse me, aren't we really just making a final approval, not the final plat, but this zoning thing is what we've already recommended that they come back with, and the city commission has approved that, is that correct?
No. The Planning Commission recommended that their application be amended to be a planned commercial application, and that that application be accompanied by the proposed site plan for the use of the property. So we're having a public hearing on whether this property should be rezoned from its present agricultural zoning.
And didn't we already, back in February, suggest that?
You suggested that the application be amended in February.
Right.
It has been amended, and now it's coming back
Right.
as amended.
Right.
So this is a summary of what occurred in the spring of this year, and the City Commission took your recommendations and they approved the annexation of this property at their March 11th meeting. And so there's a total of 97 acres that's been annexed, including the abutting road. They approved an amendment upon your recommendation to amend the future land use map to show this as future commercial. And they concurred with your recommendation to direct Southlands Development to amend their application to request Plan C7 zoning so that the proposed site development plan for the convenience store could be reviewed as part of the rezoning request. So the difference between the original application and this application is this application has the plan associated it, and so you're evaluating the zoning based on the plan that is attached to it. So you have two action items. The first one is to review the request to change from agricultural to commercial zoning, and you are to do that in accordance with, review that in accordance with the factors that are outlined in attachment 2 to your report. And then the second item is your review of the actual site development plan for the site. And so you'll be making a recommendation as to the zoning, and you'll be making a recommendation as to approval or non-approval of the site plan. And so we're talking about C7 zoning, which is designed to accommodate commercial uses that like to locate and provide services next to an interstate. And the only places in Salina where we have C7 zoning is right next to interstate interchanges, and almost all the interstate interchanges in Salina have at least one location that has C7 zoning. And so the difference is that when you have Plan C7 zoning, you're getting a site plan, a landscape plan, and building elevations that you're reviewing in conjunction with the rezoning request. You're looking at the plan to evaluate the zoning request. And so the other difference is that you can place conditions of approval on a planned commercial district, and you can't do that with a straight commercial district. And then the other thing that's different with the planned commercial district is the applicant can request deviations from the underlying zoning. And so in this case, the application for rezoning is being considered concurrently with a site development plan. And just by point of reference, there's two of those that you've reviewed in the past few years. One of them was the Popeyes restaurant in South Ohio. The other one was the Freddy's Frozen Custard on Crawford, where the zoning change and the site plan were considered concurrently at the same time. A couple meetings ago, you reviewed the site plan for Bruckner's Trucking, which was also in a Plan C7, but that was a deferred review instead of a concurrent review. And so that is the difference, but you're in the same role as you were with Bruckner's Trucking. And so the two variations that are being requested is one is a variation from our maximum 50-foot sign height to have a 70-foot pole sign along I-135. And then the other one is a maximum driveway width, which we discussed with Bruckner's and some of the others, that when you're dealing with semi-truck traffic, most of our uses that are trying to accommodate trucks are requesting to be able to exceed the 30-foot driveway width. And so when you're reviewing a zoning change, you're acting in a quasi-judicial matter, And so you are to consider certain factors in making your recommendation to the City Commission, and one of those is the suitability of the site for development with the uses permitted under the existing zoning. So we're under A1 zoning, which permits almost no type of development other than farming and support services. And so we're at the northwest corner of an interchange. The property's been annexed. It's currently vacant. It's not suitable. It is suitable. You could put warehousing or a business park here, but given its location right on the interchange, it's a prime development site because it's on a major arterial and an interstate interchange and a gateway into the airport industrial area. And so as we look at this side of the interstate as opposed to the other side, there's some very steep elevation drops on the east side of Waterwell Road and the interstate, and it does not make access from Waterwell Road available. On this side, you can access directly from Waterwell Road, and so that makes this side more attractive for an interstate-oriented business. So you're also supposed to look at the character of the neighborhood and the zoning and uses of nearby property. And the property directly to the south in the Yost addition is zone Plan C7. And so this would be consistent with the zoning and uses of nearby property. And so this request, if approved, would be compatible with those. The adequacy of public utilities to support the proposed zoning. And as we look at this area, we have utilities in existence serving this area. We are already providing police and fire protection to the Yost addition, and this area is being served by Fire Station number 3. The other thing is that the development would be served by a new public street that would extend north from Waterwell Road. And because of the traffic that would be generated by this convenience store and future development, they're designing this to be a collector street and meet a collector street standard, which means it would have a continuous center turn lane and a left turn lane at the intersection. And they're also proposing deceleration lanes for vehicles coming from the interstate and acceleration lanes for exiting property going on to Waterwell Road. And as we look at the comprehensive plan, back in the spring, you recommended and the City Commission approved that that this be changed to future commercial, and the request for C7 highway commercial zoning would be consistent with that. So again, we're looking at C7 zoning, which is designed for uses just like this. And we use our C7 zoning around our interstate interchanges to try to preserve that land for valuable uses that serve the traveling public, like convenience stores, restaurants, and hotels. And so this would be consistent with that past practice. So as to the zoning question, you could recommend approval of the requested zoning change to PC7, including the 2 variations requested by Maverick, subject to any conditions that you think are appropriate. You could recommend approval of the requested zoning change with no variations being granted. In other words, Maverick would be limited to a 50-foot pole sign consistent with the C7 regulations and lesser driveway widths. You could postpone consideration of the request if you think you need additional information to make a recommendation, or you could recommend denial of the application and provide your reasons. We've got in this presentation our recommendations and conditions. I think we'll just hold on that and see if there's any questions about the zoning, and then Mr. Hers is going to give you an overview of Maverick's site plan, and then we think we should take action on these applications at the conclusion of staff's presentation. But we would pause for any questions you have about the zoning request.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions of staff on the zoning topic? Okay, hearing none. Dustin, we'll let you speak on the site plan.
Thank you. So we do have a presentation for this, but I'm going to deviate from it so that we can look at the graphics. So rather than looking at the words, you can see the pictures. Makes a little more sense sometimes. So this is the proposed site plan as it loads here. And the site itself is a little over almost 9.5 acres, so a little over 400,000 square feet. The building area consists of 3 buildings. There is a convenience store that's a little under 6,000 square feet. And then you also have a canopy with 12 pumps and then another canopy with 7 pumps. The canopy that's located on the west side of the building is for standard vehicles, while the building on the canopy on the east, those pumps are for semi-tractors and vehicles hauling goods and services around the area. The paving area is a little over 200,000 square feet, which is the shaded area around the back, as well as the white area around the interior of the site. And then the landscape area is kind of the white area around here. And I'll pull up a landscape plan as well because it can differentiate. So the dotted areas here to the north, east, south, and then a little bit on the west side is the landscape area, and that's a little over 190,000 square feet. So 3% is building structure, and a little over 50% is paving, and then 46% is landscaping to kind of give you a breakdown of the site. The building, the convenience store is almost 6,000 square feet. It's 112 feet long north to south, 59 feet wide, and meets all of the setback requirements. The west canopy is a little over 4,000 square feet. The east canopy is a little over 2,000 square feet. So combined, the 3 structures are a little over 12,000 square feet. I'll try to zoom in a little bit. Here you can see the proposed 40-foot wide entrance openings, and what the designers have done is to pour kind of a roll-up curve, some paving back behind the curve, so that if tires miss, they don't rut out. And so this is typically like a stamped concrete, differentiated color, so that people that are using the site, they have context of where they're supposed to drive and where they're not supposed to drive, while providing a area for the rear tires of the trailers for truck drivers as they pull in. So this is the 40-foot width and the turning templates for the trucks that justify the requested variation for the turning on the site. I have to pull up another graphic here. Give me a moment. So the building design for the building consists of a cultured stone. So there's a wainscot with kind of columns and jut outs, parapets. That is a cultured stone. Then above that you have a fiberboard masonry product that's a siding. And then you also have the aluminum window frontage and door frontage. So the frames of the windows and doors are in aluminum, and then you have the accents along the top of the building there as well. The building itself is 29 feet 1 inches, and the canopy structures have a similar cultured stone around their columns with a aluminum red fascia that wraps around the canopy. Off-street parking for the site. Go back to the site plan. The site is required to have 30 off-street parking spaces. 50 are being proposed. They have the 2 driveways that exceed the 40 feet that they're requesting a variation for. Other than that, it meets all of the off-street parking and loading requirements. Landscaping, the site is required to have a little over 25,000 square feet of front yard landscaping area. They're proposing 49,000 square feet because they do have quite a bit along Waterwell Road and then I-135. And they're required to have 50 tree units, and they're proposing 54, so they do meet and exceed the landscaping requirements. For signage, as Mr. Andrew mentioned, they are requesting a 70-foot pole sign, and that is depicted on this graphic here. 50 feet is the maximum that is allowed in the C7 district, so the variation that is being requested would be for 70 feet, and that's to accommodate the elevation of the off-ramp that's adjacent. The additional height is needed for vehicles to see the sign clearly. And in addition to the 70-foot tall freestanding sign, there's also a 25-foot tall freestanding sign. And the 70-foot tall sign is about 500 square feet total, with half of it being, approximately half being a static sign for Maverick, and the other half being a price changer sign. The 25-foot sign will have a static Maverick sign as well as 3 price changer signs, a tenant sign for bonfire, and then a sign that says trucks and RVs. I'll try to zoom in a little bit more. And the location of these signs, I'll go to the site plan. The large 70-foot sign is going to be in the northeast corner of the site, while the 25-foot sign will be further to the south, but also on 135. And so that covers all of the different site elements that we would typically review for a site plan review. So I'm going to pop back into the presentation, and we'll go down to the alternatives that you would have for this. Nope, it's going to start me at the very beginning.
While Dustin's getting to that, I would just point out that attached to your packet towards the end of the site plan information is 2 letters from the project engineers representing Maverick with their justifications for the additional sign height and for the driveway width. And so those are attached to your packet so that you can see the justifications that they provided for those 2 items.
So the first alternative you would have is to recommend approval of the proposed site development plan if you believe, with whatever conditions you believe are reasonable. You could recommend approval of the proposed site development plan subject to certain revisions or corrections being made to the plan. Number 3, you could recommend denial if you feel that the plan submitted is insufficient, citing the reasons that it is insufficient. And number 4, you could postpone consideration if you believe that you need additional information for your review. Staff believes that the proposed site plan does meet all of the different criteria, and we do have a number of recommendations that we can walk through if you'd like. One is that a final development plan be drawn out with the final development plan label on it for the Maverick convenience store. Number 2, that the construction use and occupancy of the building shall conform to the International Building Code. 3, that the proposed building shall be constructed with a gutter and downspout system to direct water runoff to the detention pond that is to the south. And that 4, that the applicant shall submit a site lighting plan with fixture cut sheets for the proposed exterior lighting. Number 5, that the project shall be completed in substantial conformance with the approved site development plan, landscape plan, and associated sign and building elevation drawings, which are hereby incorporated by reference. Number 6, the building permit for this project shall be obtained within 18 months of the plan approval. And number 7, that all requested revisions shall be made to the site plan and landscape plan prior to the City Commission consideration of the site plan. And if you choose not to approve the development plan, we also have the option where you can provide the applicant with guidance on what should be made, what corrections should be made to the development plan to better conform to the surrounding area. And with that, we'll take any questions, and then we would want to take action on this in two parts, with the first action applying to the rezoning from agricultural to Plan C7, and the second action being the approval of the development plan that we just overviewed.
So we'd be open to any questions you have for staff, and then if there are no follow-up questions, then we'd want to hear from the applicant's representatives.
All right, commissioners, are there any questions for staff?
I have one. I noticed in the letter, there was also an ask for a variation on the sign square footage. Is that necessary to include from 450 to 500?
It is not. When we did our calculations, because they have three frontages. They have Marcella Drive, which is going to be their frontage that they access off of on the west side. They have Waterwell Road to the south, and they have I-135 to the east. So one of the burdens of having three frontages, you have three landscape frontages. I mean, we've talked about that on many cases, especially on those along I-135. One of the advantages is because you have three frontages, you get sign allocations credited to you for each of those frontages. So they have quite a large allowance for signage, and so they will not need a variance for the sign area.
The only variance is for the height,
The height, not for the area.
not for the area.
It's possible that they didn't realize that they got credit for all three building frontages when they looked at that.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions of staff? Okay, hearing none, would the applicants like to come forward and please state your name?
Madam Commissioner and Commissioners of the Planning Commission, we thank you very much for hearing our request today for amended application for a PC7 zoning district here. I'm here representing the Southlands Development Group, who would like to develop the whole 97 acres when we're completed here, but we'll work with this first phase as we go through this. Along with me is the co-applicant, Mr. Bradley, who represents the Southland Development Group. As Mr. Andrew mentioned, we have two different engineering staff, one for our planning and zoning as far as our infrastructure work is concerned, as well as a second for the site plan and development agreement that goes along with that. So we're here to answer any questions, and I'll let Mr. Bradley talk to him.
Good afternoon. Thanks for your time. Let me reintroduce myself. My name is Jake Bradley. I'm with Southlands Development. I think Mr. Andrews clarified everything from our standpoint in regards to the zoning. PC7 is pretty much straightforward. I ask for your blessing on that. In regard to the specifics of the layout, the site, the design, everything else, Mr. Josh Raby is here, so he would be certainly willing to answer any of your questions when it comes to the Maverick, how it looks, what they do, the flow of the traffic. I'm not going to act like I know all about that, so if you guys have questions in regards to that, he's the man to talk to. If not, I can answer your questions for you.
All right. Are there any questions of Gary, Josh, and Jay?
I have a question. The site, could you get the whole site called up again, Dustin?
Sure.
Is this going to be kind of a fuel and go type facility for semis? I know I didn't see any designated parking, like overnight parking, or is that like Plan B?
Absolutely. Josh Rabe with Maverick. Thank you guys for having us here tonight. We are a convenience store. We're not a truck stop. So no, there's no overnight parking. There's no showers, anything like that. Our goal is to provide a nice outlet for folks to get in and get what they need and move on. You will see some potential future parking spots up there in the upper right. There might come a need that we would work with staff to add short term if the site's very, very busy. Sometimes we like to provide an outlet for folks to park for 20 minutes to go in and do what they want to do. But no, we're a convenience store that just likes truckers too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.
Do you have any concerns with traffic flow?
No,
Okay.
We're very excited about being here. Kansas is a new territory for us. Maverick, we've been a company for almost 100 years now. And up until recently, it operated in about 12 states, and now with the recent acquisition of Come and Go, we're in over 20 and growing. Kansas is a huge part of that for us, and we're really excited about the 135 corridor and this project in particular. Your willingness to hopefully open up the throat of those drives is huge for us. It's just safety. We want to make it easy for people to get in and out and not create tight conflicts, right? We want it to be just as easy for me in my little SUV to pull in there as for a trucker and not have conflicts. So we like to try to make that nice and easy. And so staff's been great to work with up to this point, and I think you guys might have the record right now for most trees on any of my sites. So good out of you guys. I like that personally. I'm kind of that kind of guy, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You're in the business of selling fuel. Are you having any EV stations? Is there any federal requirements for something like that?
There is not at this
Okay.
time. We have some assets in our portfolio that we deal with that. It is a very murky, it's a murky path right now. And so we feel like for now, diesel especially is a thing that I think as you look at more manufacturing being brought back into the States and distribution centers, the importance of those, we feel like there's a tremendous opportunity to service those customers that are here right now and support those jobs.
Where is your nearest Maverick store?
So we have 2 under construction in Garden City right now, with several getting ready to go in Kansas. Hopefully one more this year to get started and several next year. I'm running out of time. Winter's coming. But Colorado would be the closest fully operational Maverick that you would probably find from here. We're all over Colorado. Come and Go and Maverick both had a large footprint there. So yeah, that'd be your best space.
And when would you hope to have this one done?
It's a great question, and I'm going to do everything I can to dance around answering that for you. I would just tell you that I don't foresee the 18-month building permit being an issue. We're going to get started as soon as we can. That's the plan, Lord willing, with a few things that we got to work out.
So maybe in a year, you think, or is it?
Ideally, yep. Just don't quote me on that in the newspaper, please.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions of any of the applicants?
I just had
I have a
quick-
comment.
Yes, Carrie?
I'd just like to say I've been into some of those Mavericks, I think Nevada, Colorado, and I can't remember some other, maybe up in Wyoming, I can't remember. And they're always clean and nice. So I just wanted to make a comment that I enjoyed going into those facilities, and we'll be happy to see one here in Salina.
Thank you,
Okay.
Carrie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
You had a reference to bonfire on one of the signs. Is that a tenant or is that just a space
Well, that's a
within the Maverick?
Great question. Jake asked me the same thing sitting back there. That's just reference to we have a large offering of grab-and-go items, but there also are some made-to-order items in our kitchen. And so that is our proprietary in-house kitchen is the Bonfire Grill. It kind of plays into the adventure's first stop. That's our deal. So, yeah, there's going to be several offerings that you can come in and actually order fresh-made food. But don't look past the burritos. They're pretty good for grab-and-go.
Yeah, my husband likes those.
Yeah. I had one for breakfast.
All right. Are there any other questions of the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, are there any questions for
Probably want
staff?
to see if there's anyone from the public that
Okay.
wants to comment on this. We don't have anybody via Zoom, do we?
I don't believe we have anyone via Zoom from the public that is raising their hand to speak.
All right, commissioners, I bring it back for discussion or a motion, if you're ready for a motion.
I appreciate the security, or the safety issues, I mean, of the expanded curb cuts. Do we have precedent for that here with other?
Yeah, we, just at the most recent site plan you approved, we kind of did you an overview, but on the warehouse, furniture warehouse across the street, their curb cut is 40 feet wide, and you approved 40-foot curb cuts for Bruckner's trucking based on, so this is consistent with your, and the primary distinction is if you're trying to accommodate semi-truck traffic and semi-truck turns, the Planning Commission has been supportive of the 40-foot curb cut for semis.
Thank
you. Just for Dustin, if you want to put the slide up about our recommendation on the zoning. So one of the things, again, that we talked about, again, as Dustin mentioned on the frontage as it relates to signage and landscaping, that it can work both ways. The thing about a planned commercial district is that you can put conditions and limitations on the zoning change, but it also allows the applicant to request deviations. And so on our first action item for zoning, our recommendation is to approve the Plan C7 zoning for Southlands development, including the 2 variations requested by Maverick. And then the condition number 2 there would grant them the variation to have a 70-foot pole sign height for their primary sign. And then we've got some other recommended conditions. And so what would happen here is if you would recommend approval of this, then we will take and incorporate these conditions into an ordinance that would rezone this property, and these items would be incorporated into that ordinance. And so one of those is that the city engineer approve the plans and specifications for stormwater detention pond, and that be completed before we issue a certificate of occupancy for the store. And then number 4 just clarifies that the developer, in this case Southland, is responsible for construction of Marcella Drive to the north boundary of the subdivision and the improvements that we have shown you relating to the intersection. And so that incorporates that as a condition of approval.
Okay.
And so again, these are a recommendation, and then those would get incorporated into an ordinance that would go before the city commission.
All right, commissioners, I open it up for a motion.
Well, I'd move that we approve application Z24-1 filed by Southlands Development to change the zoning to PC7. And are you saying we also need, I thought we'd do the variations under the final plat, or do those variations need to come now?
Those would be included as part of the zoning action, because the variations will be carried out through an ordinance that would rezone this property.
Okay.
So that if you wanted to make that motion incorporating staff's, including the 2 variations requested by Maverick and staff's recommended conditions.
Right. I would include the 2 variations in the staff recommendation/conditions.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the zoning classification from agricultural to PC7. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, motion carries. Thank you.
The follow-up vote is just specific on the site plan itself, and I don't know if you want to call that up, Dustin, but Dustin went over those, and again, other than the driveway width and the sign height, the site plan that was presented conforms with all of the city's development standards. And so the second action would be to vote on approval of Maverick's site development plan. And the purpose of that is your vote is essentially saying that we can issue a building permit based on that plan.
Okay.
I'd make that motion, Z24-1 with the 7 staff recommendations on page 17.
We've
Okay.
already done that one, haven't we?
No, that's for the site plan.
The recommendations for the site plan would be on page 17 of the report,
Yes.
and there are 7 of them.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. Sorry, Justin. It's been moved and second to approve the site development plan for Z21-4. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. All right. We have no legislative matters. We will now move into administrative items.
So this is related to that,
This is
and this is the action that would create the platted lot for this convenience store to be built on. And so this is coming back to you with a one-lot final plat. You did approve a preliminary plat in March of this year for a larger area, and this is coming back for just a single lot final plat. And in terms of subdivision design, this subdivision has 2 direct access perimeter streets, water well road, and its condition has been dealt with through a development agreement between the City of Salina and Southlands Development. And that development agreement allowed the sidewalk improvements and curb and gutter installation on Waterwell Road to be deferred. And Marcella Drive is going to be constructed to full city street standards as part of the development of the Windy Creek addition, which is the convenience store site. So that takes care of meeting the perimeter street requirements. The actual access to the convenience store site, again, will require the construction of Marcella Drive, and this has 627 feet of frontage on that. And at the end of the termination of the street, they are proposing a hammerhead, and so that would be a temporary turnaround until such time that Marcella Drive got extended. So what they're doing is providing a dedicated space here, and so the street would terminate, and then there would be a temporary hammerhead constructed here for turnaround and getting back out, and then that would be eliminated at whatever point in time Marcella Drive got extended. So we're talking about a single lot, and it's going to be served by extending a water line up from the Yost addition up to Marcella Drive. And that will serve the convenience store, and then there's a sanitary sewer line that will be extended north from the Yost addition, and that will serve the convenience store site. And then the final piece of the puzzle is the storm drainage plan, and we provided you a blow-up of that. And so originally there was some discussion about building a pond in the northeast corner and discharging into the I-135 right-of-way, but the design engineers for Maverick modified that, and they are proposing a 100-foot wide drainage easement at the south end adjacent to Waterwell Road, and so all the post-development runoff will run into that drainage easement and pond and be discharged at a controlled rate into the roadside ditch and drain west to Dry Creek. You do have at your places a memo from Wayne Nelson, the city's civil engineer, who has reviewed the study and the concepts, and he has indicated that the methods that Olson Engineering used in their preparation meets the City of Salina standards, and that the projected runoff volume will fit within the pond and the drainage easement. And so we've kind of summarized for you the improvements that are going to be constructed here as part of the development. And so we'll have a westbound turn lane on Waterwell Road for people that are entering from Marcella Drive. There'll be an acceleration lane for exiting traffic. There'll be a left turn lane on Marcella, so people exiting the convenience store site and wanting to turn right don't have to wait behind a left turning vehicle. There'll be a construction of the detention pond and utilities. The other thing that would note, and the developer can clarify that, but it has been indicated to us that they are not planning to utilize special assessment financing for the streets, water, and sewer, but that they will be done under private contract and financed and constructed privately. And so a lot of our recent projects have also involved special assessments, but it's our understanding that that is not going to occur here. So We have outlined on page 11 the recommended conditions of approval, that the developer be responsible for the infrastructure that's outlined in the report, that there will be a temporary turnaround constructed at the north terminus of Marcella Drive, that there will be a certificate of completion for all the public improvements before a permit's issued for the convenience store, and that we would work with Maverick to execute a maintenance agreement for the detention pond, and then we would get a revised plat drawing containing all the revisions and technical corrections contained on our punch list before the plat is recorded. In the alternative, if you don't think this plat is in a position to be approved, you can postpone consideration or deny the plat and cite the criteria for connectivity or infrastructure that you don't think are being met. But we think the final plat is in order for your approval, and that gives them a lot to be zoned Plan C7. So with that, I'd be open to any questions.
Thank you, Dean. Are there any questions of staff?
Yeah, Dean, and then this may be a question for Justin too. The hammerhead up there at the temporary turnaround, is that big enough for trucks? Because I see trucks going by and missing an entrance and going up there and having to turn around.
Yeah, the primary design criteria, and Mr. Owens or Jonathan Thompson can address that, but the primary criteria we have in our code is for emergency vehicles.
Oh.
The turnaround is primarily for emergency vehicles to get back out, turned around, and go to another call. It's not necessarily, it is designed for people who maybe unintentionally, or they missed the driveways, or they didn't mean to turn there. It's designed for that as well. But as we've reviewed it, it appeared to be that it was designed not necessarily for semis, but for fire apparatus and ambulances.
I see.
So
And will that be paved, or will that be like a gravel surface?
we have had them both ways, but I'll defer to the engineers who designed it to address that.
Okay. Are there any other questions of staff before we ask the applicant to come forward? Hearing none, would the applicant like to come forward, please?
Jake Bradley, Southlands Development. I just need clarification, Dean. You said when it comes to issuing Maverick a permit, are you requesting that we have the entire lot or the roadway, everything constructed before you issue them a occupancy permit or a building permit? Because we were going to try and do both projects at the same time.
Well, the normal course of business is that you put the public improvements in, and you have operational water, and you have a paved access, and then you begin construction.
Okay, so is moving dirt work classified as construction?
No.
Okay, that's all I needed. But yeah, I think Justin wants to
And
address the
we
hammerhead.
could conceivably work on something that might be a footing and foundation permit for the convenience store, but
Okay.
we would want to have the utilities in, and particularly the water, before we started doing any real construction.
Okay,
So-
I just know in my conversations with Maverick, when you can do those synergies together at the same time, it's faster and it saves money. So, thanks.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
Justin Owens, Call Valley Engineering. Yeah, for a pavement surface, we were thinking gravel just because the temporary nature of it. I know Jake probably has plans to move forward with the next phases fairly quick, so save money and more of a temporary surface.
All right, any other questions for Justin? All right, thank you.
Yeah, it will change, but the temporary turnaround out on Virginia Drive by Menards that's been temporary for over 10 years, so it's just temporary means different things, but someday it'll go away.
All right, are there any other questions of the staff or the applicant? If none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve application P 24-1A with the 8 staff recommendations.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve and a second for application P 24-1A. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. All right.
Just for the benefit of the applicants, the next scheduled city commission meeting is November the 18th because of Veterans Day, and so they'll meet the 18th and 25th. So that's likely when this will be taken up. Can't predict.
All right. Thank you. Dean, is there any unfinished or other business?
I don't think we have any other business or unfinished business. The action you took on the plat for Project 80, the Airport Authority's project at Waterwell and Centennial, the final plat for that was approved last night by the City Commission. They also approved the benefit district for the construction of streets and utilities and temporary bonds to finance that. They also recommended approval of an annexation of there was a gap created by the annexation of this property in Waterwell Road, and then Waterwell Road was annexed next to the Airport Authority property, and so there was a section between the creek and Centennial that was still in the county, and the county asked the city to annex that piece of roadway to make that a continuous city roadway. So that all occurred last night, so I would expect to see a lot of dirt moving at the corner of Centennial and Waterwell fairly soon.
Okay, thank you.
I think the only other thing we have for other business is at present we do not have anything scheduled for the first meeting in November. So we'll confirm that, but we do not believe that meeting will be held.
Okay, thank you. Justin, is there anybody online?
I don't think we have anyone, it does not appear we have anyone online for public comment.
Okay, thank you. I entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
And a second.
Okay, moved and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.